Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's video, that's going to take us to around the 24th of November, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensemble, so run to around a couple of weeks. Going to have a look at Beijing Climate Centre today for the next 40 days, taking us up towards Christmas actually. So that will be in the final part of the video, beginning with today's latest deluge and also what's happening in strategy. It's going to be a bit of an extended one. This one, I hope you find it interesting and informative. We're going to start off with radar at Gatwick. So we've got another deluge across many parts of England and Wales. Look at this band of rain that is near stationary through parts of East Anglia, much of the North and East Midlands, into West Midlands, into Wales, into South West England. It's been pouring. It's been pouring in this area since last night, hour after hour after hour of pouring rain. It's gradually easing its way north, so it is moving now into the flooded areas that have been flooded through Lincolnshire, Yorkshire, and into the North Midlands and in towards North Wales as well. So some very bright colours in there, indicating some heavy rain. I'm not sure rain is quite as torrential as it was last week, but this is very persistent rain. And so the totals are going to clock up with this between 25 and 50 millimetres in this area again, I'm afraid, meaning there will be a renewed risk of flooding through the course of the rest of today, tonight, and into tomorrow. Not only is it wet, it's also very cold as well. So these are our temperatures here at XC Weather. So Church and Ortham at just 4 degrees in the middle of the day. East Midlands Airport again at just 4 degrees. Nottingham at 5 degrees. Fairford is at 4 degrees, Boscombe down at 4 degrees, even down on the south coast at Southampton it's only 4 degrees. Over high ground also across southwest England we've got Dunk as well at just 1 degree and Liscombe at 1 degree as well. There have been reports of snow this morning across southwest parts of England, particularly over high ground, but a few flakes I think have come down to lower levels as well. Over towards the east coast it's a little bit less cold there, 5 degrees at Norwich, 7 degrees at Wattisham, and 6 degrees at Southend. Although those temperatures obviously are not setting the world alight. So it's cold and wet across many parts of the country today, and obviously this rain is going to be a risk. There's going to be a risk with it anyway, but we might have more flooding issues. Now, these are latest flood warnings from the Environment Agency. This is at the government website. So at the moment, actually, we don't have any severe flood warnings. There are 0 severe flood warnings, severe flooding danger to life. They've all been taken off and reduced. Whether they reappear later on today, do keep an eye on this page if you're in those already at-risk areas of particularly Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. So just keep a close eye on this page. At the moment, there are no severe flood warnings giving a danger to life, but that situation might change later today, tonight or tomorrow. We do have 46 flood warnings where flooding is expected and immediate action is required. So all of these areas just here, I haven't got time to go through them all, obviously. But if you think you could be in that area just here, then again, I'm going to leave a link to this page at in the district at Gatwick. So in the district with the video, I should say, and on the links page at Gatwick. So do have a look at this if you think could be in that affected area. There's also 123 flood alerts where flooding is possible, and be prepared. So again, if you think you could be in that area, then do check out this this page and see if your particular area is affected. But at the moment, there aren't any severe flood warnings. There are no severe flood warnings at the moment, but of course with this latest deluge, that situation could change later today and overnight into tomorrow. So just be a case of keeping a very, very close eye on what's going on there. Looking at the stratosphere, this is how things are currently looking in terms of temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole. The stratosphere is getting colder, so the grey line is a trend line, black line that shows the current temperature. You can see how this is dropping away. It's getting colder and colder in the stratosphere over the North Pole. Now, we are in a cooling time of year, of course, so you'll expect the stratospheric temperature over the North Pole and the Arctic to be getting colder, but we're under average, we're colder than average, with the temperature getting very close now towards minus 18 at 10 HPA, so very, very cold stratosphere and cold on average at 10 HPA. At the same time, going a little bit low down to 30 HPA. Again, the temperature is significantly cold on average now. See how this black line is doing a little bit of a plunge. It's underneath the grey line, so we have got a very cold stratosphere, both at 10 and at 30 HPA, which would normally be associated with a strengthened polar vortex. More about that in a moment. So this is how the temperature is forecast to develop over the next couple of weeks with the GFS model. We're at metroseal.fr for this. So this will be stratospheric temperature forecast at 10 HPA for the next couple of weeks. These blue colours, these dark blue colours, they are where we've got cold temperatures at 10 HPA in the stratosphere. Just quickly running through, you see if anything the temperature gets colder, actually the blues turn towards purples, goes under minus 18 in the next few days. So very, very cold temperatures within the next week, certainly in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over the Arctic. And this goes on into the extended range, actually in around just over 10 days' time. It's forecast to go down to around minus 84, minus 85 there. That's a really, really cold temperature at 10 HPA. And this continues right up to the end of GFS run, up to the end of month. No sign of any warming of the stratosphere in the North Pole at that point. There is a bit of a warming taking place there right at the very end over Eurasia, but that's not enough to become a sudden stratospheric warming at that point. And it's certainly not moving into the North Pole either. So in the next couple of weeks, it's going to keep very cold temperatures at 10 HPA. In fact, getting colder. If we go down to sort of minus 84, 85, where there was a bit of suggestion, the black line is going to do something like that. It will go down to kind of like there. So we could see that black line dropping further on these charts with very cold temperatures at 10 HPA over the next couple of weeks. Now, this would normally be associated with a strengthened polar vortex and an increase of the westerlies. At the same time as these cold temperatures are taking place at 10 HPA, we also have almost a record-breakingly strong zone of wind in the stratosphere. So this is on weatheriscool.com. I normally show you these charts within the winter updates. Don't normally show you them in the week. But I thought we'd include it for today's video. So loads of different coloured lines here. The most important one is the black line just there, telling us that at this time of the year, the zone of winds are in their strengthening phase over the North Pole in the stratosphere over the Arctic. So typically the zone of winds will strengthen to the end of the year, to the end of December, beginning of January, and then they'll weaken, and we'll see the zone of winds weakening through the spring and into the summer when the polar vortex, of course, goes away for a few months. Now, the blue line shows where we are right now with the strength of the zone of wind, and actually we are at pretty much record-breaking levels for this point of the year. Obviously, going further on into the year, the zone of winds get even stronger by the end of the year. But for this point of the year, we're pretty much at date records now. Just there in terms of the strength of the zone of winds for this point in the middle of November. So this would normally be associated with a strengthened polar vortex with a cold average temperature at 10 HPA in the stratosphere and a record-breaking strong zone of wind at 10 HPA in the stratosphere. That would normally be associated with a very, very strong polar vortex and strengthening westerlies. What we've actually got at the moment is rather weakened westerlies with the Arctic Oscillation in negative territory. Now, what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks if the GFS is right, and that's these green lines just here, if the GFS is right, we're going to see a massive deacceleration of the zone of winds taking place in the stratosphere over the North Pole. You see how these green lines are just dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping away until we get to the end of a GFS run, which is pretty much getting to the end of November now, when the zone of winds are around there. That's a massive drop in the strength of the zone of winds over 2 weeks. And as we've already established, this is not happening through any form of warming of the stratosphere. In fact, the stratospheric temperature is going to be getting colder over the next couple of weeks. But nevertheless, we see a massive, massive deacceleration of the zone of winds there, which is very, very strange for that to happen without any sort of warming of the stratosphere. And all I can think that's going on is that we've got this disagreement at the moment between what's happening in the stratosphere, where everything is set up for a very, very strong polar vortex, and what's happening in the troposphere lower down, where we have got these blocking signals. As I say, the Arctic oscillation, I showed it for this video, but the Arctic oscillation is in negative territory and is forecast to stay negative, with blocking signals within the troposphere over the Arctic in the next couple of weeks. And I'm just wondering whether the troposphere is actually going to start having an effect on the stratosphere. Normally it's the other way around. Normally it's the stratosphere that affects the troposphere. So what's happening in the stratosphere normally drives the trop. But in this case, it could well be that the troposphere is going to start affecting the stratosphere, and that is explaining that massive deacceleration that we see there within the zone of winds. And the other coloured lines, where before CFSV2 runs, we've got 3 pink and 1 blue. We actually have at least 2 members of the CFS that are going for a reversal of zone of winds. So this is the month of December just here. That's November there. That's January just there. And that's February. So by the end of November, we're around here. We haven't gone into reverse of the zone of winds, if GFS is right, but we are very rapidly weakening them. The CFS, though, picks this theme up, and you see this blue line here dipping away. That's a reversal of zone of winds by the middle of December. The zone of winds have actually gone into reverse. This one is also doing the same, going for a reversal of the zone of winds underneath that all-important 0 line just here. And then a little bit further on, we have another one doing it just there, I think. Well, that's possibly the same one, but there is another one that does get to a reversal of the zone of winds. This one just here, actually, that's around New Year to the beginning of January. That one also going for a very slight reversal of the zone of winds. So at the moment, 3 out of 4 members of CFSV2 forecast are reversing the zone of winds in either December or the beginning of January. 2 of them are actually doing it by the middle of December. And they're sort of following on. What's interesting is the way they're following on from this massive deacceleration of the zone of winds that's starting very, very shortly, starting any time now, and just carrying on through the second half of November. Now, this is happening without a sudden stratospheric warming. So it's very, very unusual what we're seeing here. And we'll just have to see what the impacts of this are, if there are any. But if we do get a reversal of the zone of winds, that would typically be associated with, again, a blocking signal in over the Arctic and over the North Pole. So let's just wait and see where that's going. But it is very, very interesting how we have this disconnect between the troposphere and stratosphere. But now it looks like we may be seeing signs that the troposphere, the blocking signals in the troposphere, possibly are going to start having an impact on the stratosphere. We shall see. Right, so having a look at weather next week, 10 days. These are the 500 millibar high anomaly flow charts from Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. So 500 millibar, seat is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure, are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red is high pressure, blue is low pressure. So the ECM has this ridge of above average heights extending through many eastern and northeastern parts of Europe up towards the Arctic. There's also a little bit of blocking over Greenland as well, with a trough of low pressure continuing to sit to our southwest. These are, I say, mean flow charts for 7 to 10 days, so this takes us to around the last week of November. Still not so unsettled. That trough of low pressure will throw up further bands of rain. The only difference is that the rain should be a bit warmer as the wind is shifting into the south or southwest. That will start to drag up warmer air from the south, or milder air from the south. So we should see temperatures staging a little bit of a recovery by around days 7, 8, 9, 10. But at the same time, it's staying unsettled. That's the main idea with that. And the GFS, of course, is very similar. So again, we've got these blocking signals sitting to our north. So a bit of high pressure around Greenland and Iceland. There's also high pressure over eastern parts of Europe, but has been there for a very long time now. And then we've got this trough of low pressure just to west-southwest of us. So remains unsettled, throwing up further bands of rain. This is closer to pulling in some colder air into that trough of low pressure, though, although as it is, I think up to day 10, probably reasonably milder, but still very wet with that trough of low pressure down to our southwest. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Look at Chester today, another suggested place for this section of the video. So red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Chester. We're starting cold average at the moment. The dates on the bottom, so it's around the 20th of November. Generally, the temperatures are staying below average. There's quite a cold snap potentially coming up for a day or so early next week. After that, though, through the middle and second half of next week, the trend is still there to lift the temperature up, becoming milder as we go into the final week of November. Temperatures staging a little bit of a recovery. There are a few cold outlier members down here, these ones just there, but I think the general trend, certainly for the final 10 days and definitely for the final week of the month, is to begin to recover the temperature and lift them up. Precipitation-wise, though, it remains unsettled. This is today's deluge. We'll be having impacts on Chester very shortly. A couple of drier days sort of over the weekend, but next week, rainfall spikes taking off again. Plenty of precipitation to come. So we go from cold rain to milder rain, but whichever way you look at it, it just looks like it's generally going to be quite wet now up to the end of November. Temperature anomalies from the 14th to 22nd of November are below average. It's going to be another cold average week coming up, not just for the UK and Ireland, but through most parts of Western Europe. This has been the trend within these anomaly maps for quite some time, of course, now. So it looks like it's going to get milder for the end of November, but that's outside of this forecast time frame from the 14th to the 22nd. Precipitation anomalies remain as they have been through much of the month, so a bit drier than average actually for parts of Scotland, particularly southwestern Scotland, but for England and Wales it's wetter than average, and again this tells us that this pattern for this November is quite unusual in that the northwest is drier than the southeast, which is a bit of a flip on what we normally expect in a typical November and a typical autumn. That's how the GFS is looking for Sunday. So on Sunday, just raising the heights a little bit close to the country. It will start to dry out a bit over the weekend and into early next week, although this area of low pressure just here will threaten rain on the eastern side of the country. And by Tuesday, we're going to have this low moving in from off the Atlantic. So that goes into a very unsettled spell then through the second half of next week. 980 millibar area of low pressure just to our west, throwing up bands of rain across the country. Lots of wet weather included in with that. The difference is that the wind direction has shifted into the south. So the ice paths have pulled round to the south, so temperatures will start to stage a little bit of a recovery, but it's just going from cold rain to something a little bit less cold with the rain. Moving up towards day 10, stays unsettled, but eventually this low pressure begins to slip away to our south, start to become a cut-off low off the coast of Portugal, allowing high pressure to begin to rise to the north of Scotland, somewhere between Iceland and Norway. And so it's actually a blocking feature that, but the wind direction is kind of like a little bit south-southeast, so it's not particularly cold, but it is breaking us out of the unsettled conditions, at least for a while. In the extended range of this GFS run, well, we have a go at building a Scandinavian high from that ridge developing to our north. Doesn't quite come off though. And we finish up at the end of GFS run, which is to the last day of November, looking like that. More anticyclonic. So the last week of November goes drier, probably reasonably mild, although if skies are clear, you would expect frost. And after all this rain, I would have thought fog could become an increasing problem through the last week of November if this ridge does start getting going. But certainly turning drier through the last week of November on that particular GFS run. GM looks like that, so gradually over weekend into the early part of next week we go a bit dry, but it will be quite cold with winds in from the north. Any dry weather very quickly vanquished by this big trough of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. It does change the wind direction to something a little bit more southerly, so we go milder through next week, but also still very unsettled with further bands of rain being thrown up across the country. That's how it looks as we get to day 10, which is Sunday the 24th of November, mild and wet, basically with low pressure still sitting to the west of the country. This is how the ECM is looking. So again, rather cold and a little bit dry perhaps early next week, but any dry conditions quickly pushed aside by this low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic. It's a very deep area of low pressure as well. So case of showers or longer spells of rain, could be some deluges mixed in with that. Temperatures do lift up a bit. That's how long as we finish the ECM run. So still unsettled, trough of low pressure still through the country. Just begin to raise heights out to the northwest, probably trying to force in something a bit drier and a little bit colder there if we could run on beyond day 10. This is a precipitation forecast from that ECMWF run. So here's today's really wet weather. It's a bit of hill snow included with this as well, but it's primarily rain. Very wet through those areas, exactly where we didn't want it. The rain begins to ease away overnight as it gets lighter and patchy. Tomorrow, further showery bursts, particularly in the south and the southeast, and then into Saturday, further showers knocking around the country. They carry on into Sunday as well. Could be some longer spells of rain again, you'll see, or you'll notice associated with that on Sunday. Monday is a bit dry, could be some wintry showers running down the east coast, but a rather drier day on Monday. But then into next week, we begin to drive these bands of rain in from the Atlantic. So initially, a lot of the wet weather is out in the west through the course of next week, and the east does go a little bit drier, but eventually we do get to what looks like a bit of a deluge there. By the time we get through the 22nd of November, we've all turned very, very wet once again. And these unsettled conditions then take us up towards day 10. Perhaps going a little bit dry by the time we get through to day 10. These are the options we've got on the table within the ECM ensembles today from the Icelandic Met Office for day 10, getting us to the 24th of November. Have 23 members of the ECM ensembles racing some heights to the northwest, and also with this big ridge to the east and a trough to the south. This includes the operational and the control run. So it's still unsettled up to day 10, but possibly just hinting at some higher pressure. 16 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure out to west. That's the Atlantic unleashed with those. And then 12 with a strong blocking signal to our north. These ones have a lot of high pressure over Scandinavia, extending out to Greenland with low pressure underneath it. They're quite cold and unsettled. I would have thought those ones really quite wet. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got, getting us more or less to the end of November now, to be 29th of November. So we have 21 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure out in the Atlantic, high pressure over Scandinavia. They'll be turning winds into the east, I think. It could be getting quite cold. 18 with low pressure just dominating from off the Atlantic. They're obviously going to be very, very unsettled. And then 12 with low pressure up to the north and high pressure developing to our south, and that would be a much milder scenario, bringing in the southwesters, unsettled for northern parts of the country, but I suppose reasonably dry or drier down in the south. That's by far the mildest option. The other two are quite cold. This one is cold and wet, and this one is cold and dry. Bit inconclusive by the time we get through to the end of November, but I think we may see some dry conditions turning up in the last week of November, possibly. Right, let's have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre then finally before we go. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into 10-day periods. It's going to get us to Christmas just about. So quite interesting, but it's just for fun, remember. So the first 10-day period will take us from the 16th to the 25th of November. The coming 10 days will have above average heights in the Atlantic, below average heights over to the east of the country. And then, of course, there's that big ridge sitting across eastern parts of Europe, bringing those warm temperatures up to central eastern parts of Europe. But for us, actually, at least initially, relatively cold and relatively unsettled. The next 10-day period is the 26th of November to the 5th of December. And a bit of a change, above average heights then developing over and out to the west of the country. Jet streams going northwards, so that's going dry but also going milder. Now, of course, the thing with that is that we're in a ridge of high pressure, so skies are clear by night. There could be fog and frost. But overall, it's a milder but also drier period there for the very end of November, the start of December. The next 10-day period is the 6th to the 15th of December. The above average heights then pull back out into the middle of the Atlantic, trough of below average heights developing over and come over here, over to the east of the country. That's probably lining up jet stream northwest, southeast, going more unsettled, I would have thought there, and a little bit colder again. And then we go through to the final 10-day periods, and this is getting us to Christmas. It's getting us from the 16th of December to Christmas Day. And it looks quite interesting. We've got above average heights here in the middle of the Atlantic. That's the mid-Atlantic ridge, extending up to Greenland and Iceland. a trough of below average heights is over the UK and over central parts of Europe, I would imagine that's pulling in pretty cold air from the north, east, or possibly even from the east. So cold and unsettled as we run up to Christmas, and I would have thought a scenario like that would, in the second half of December, would probably bring a risk of snow. So this is a very long way out. It's days 31 to 40, but the Beijing Climate Centre is looking quite interesting indeed for the run up to Christmas. Temperature anomalies in the next 10 days are colder than average. The following 10 days, though, goes milder. That's as that ridge builds up across the country. It's 26th of November to the 5th of December. That is a milder period, although there could be night frost and fog under that ridge of high pressure, of course. Close to average with temperatures in the next 10-day period, 6th to the 15th of December, but the final 10 days in the period, not quite 10 days of December, but the final 10 days of the period, days 31 to 40, from the 16th to the 25th of December, a little bit cold on average for the UK. Many parts of northern and central Europe also looking colder than average. To me, that looks like many parts of Northern Europe, including the UK, could be impacted by cold and potentially wintry weather as we're going up towards Christmas. So it gets us to Christmas Day, doesn't get us any further, so it doesn't tell us if we would have a cold Christmas to New Year, but certainly the run-up to Christmas with the Beijing Climate Centre is looking quite calm. Maybe it's just a snapshot of what the model is showing, but it gets updated every day in terms of these 40-day forecast charts. So it could look very different tomorrow. That's just a snapshot of what it's showing today. But it is going for a cold and potentially snowy, wintry run-up towards Christmas, I think, there for much of Northern Europe, and the UK could be impacted in that too. That's all for fun. That's all speculation. Coming back to the more reasonable time frame, which is the next week to 10 days. So we've got the Deluge again today. It's back, and there's going to be risk of more flooding, I think, with this rain. Staying unsettled certainly through much of next week. Temperatures will stage a little bit of a recovery, going to become a little bit milder, but we'll still be throwing up bands of rain across the country. Just a few hints at the last days of November, the last week or so will possibly go a little bit drier. We'll have to wait and see about that. Right, so been a very extended video. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Tomorrow we've got JMA Friday coming up for you, and we'll also have a week 10-day video update then as well. So you come back for tomorrow's videos, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.